Hello, dear viewer. I'm happy to see you in the fifth episode of podcast series with top tech CEOs. And today we have Sampo Parkinen, serial entrepreneur, CEO of Reviv, and just an inspiring individual. I am glad to be able to have this conversation to get some interesting insights myself, to have you hear the fantastic things which we're gonna discuss. And without any further ado, I just wanna ask, how are you doing, Sampo?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks, Max, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast. So I really look forward to our conversation today. So really happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And just going a bit couple steps ahead, Reviv is international company with offices all around the globe, so it's not going to be excessive to ask where are you calling from.
Yeah, so I'm actually calling in from lovely Helsinki, Finland, or a bit rainy right now, but we're also getting the spring. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm based here, but like I said, we have a global business. We have customers in more than 50 countries, more than 120 different brands and retailers across skin, health, beauty, and wellness that we work with, and we have a team based on three continents. So. I haven't actually counted the number of nationalities, but I think we're probably close to 30 nationalities, 25, 30-ish, if I had to guess. So very much a not just an international company, but a global one at that. So
Mm-hmm. I think that well, obviously you have a technical team because the core product is tech. However, the industry which you serve, which is beauty retail, is I think people all over the world want to look prettier, I guess. Yeah, so these businesses thrive and desperately need your service. So I'm. It's definitely not surprising that you have both demand and people who are helping you to create the product all over the world. That's cool.
yeah, definitely, and it's an interesting combination because I mean you look at kind of beauty and retail, and then on the other hand you look at some really high, quality, high level technology when we think about AI, when we think about things like computer vision, deep learning, and all these really sort of highly technical things. So it's kind of an interesting mix, right? You have on one hand you have something that is highly technical, right, and quite difficult even as a concept, and it requires a lot of engineering and a lot of we have a bunch of PhDs in the team, for example. And on the other hand, you have a target audience and a market, and the customers that we work with, these are beauty retailers, right? So they're beauty brands. So it's almost like combining two completely different worlds, and that's the intersection where we live at. So it's pretty interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm. And is your background so? mm Please excuse me if I'm wrong, but according to what I have researched, you began your so you began your entrepreneurial journey in the zeros of this century, right?
Yeah, yeah. So before Revive, there's been a couple of different businesses I've been involved in. One of the most notable ones was also a retail technology company that we actually founded that straight out of college, and we ended up selling that. It was a company based in Finland. We also had international customers. We ended up selling that to a company called Shopper Track in Chicago. This is some 10, 12 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And then coming off the back of that, we started Revive, and then also been doing some of my own investments and so forth on the side. But been an entrepreneur for the past 20 ish years, going on 20 years pretty soon. So yeah, it's that's where the gray hair comes from. So
I understand. So, mm, but I think, all right. I could ask a lot of questions, but I will focus on those which will bring the most value to our audience. So, okay, and what inspired you to get you into beauty industry? Why exactly this kind of product?
yeah, I mean it's a question that I get asked a lot, especially in the early days. We started 9 years ago, um, and especially because the co-founders we are three guys, three men who co-founded a beauty technology company, which doesn't necessarily, it's not the obvious match, but the way we sort of looked at this is that there's a really kind of personal problem that I had with my own skin, which kind of led me to do a bunch of research in and around the sort of skincare space. And what I uncovered was really kind of interesting, really profound about, what are some of the consumer challenges in terms of buying and using and selecting, products for skincare, for makeup, for hair care, all these really personal categories. And what I felt was that, and this is again, sort of 8, 9 years ago at the time, was that particularly across digital channels, when brands and retailers were attempting to sell beauty products to consumers, I mean, mind you, beauty products are probably the most personal products you're ever going to buy. I mean, these are things that you
Yeah.
literally put on your face. These are things that you sometimes consume. Um, and and when I looked at how brands and retailers were trying to sell these products to the consumer, it felt very much more as if we were trying to push products to consumers as opposed to really trying to help the consumers buy. And when you think about the in-store model, particularly in the beauty industry, like the notion of this in-store beauty consultant, that trusted advisor, that person who actually actively helps you find the right stuff, helps you buy it, that's been around forever. I mean, companies have been founded on that business model of this trusted advisory, like whether it's companies like Avon, in the direct selling space, or a number of others. um, so that's where we really came from. We said, okay, these are really the consumer challenges, right? These are the consumer challenges that if you really want to win as a brand, you want to win as a retailer, you're going to have to solve these challenges for your consumer audience in terms of really helping them buy products. And and that's really why we kind of, where we started from, right? That was a natural starting point. But I do believe, like, if we expand that out, if I think about kind of commerce and retail more broadly, I do think that, there is this notion that, consumers today are too smart, they are too well educated, they're too well informed for brands and retailers to be trying to push products to the consumer. Brands and retailers, it used to work where you would just have some celebrities, you would kind of advertise a bunch of products, you would have some distribution, and you could push products to consumers. These days consumers are way smarter, way more informed, they have access to more information. So I do think that this trend of transforming away from trying to sell to the consumer into helping the consumer buy is going to be it's going to expand to a lot of other verticals of commerce. So again, beauty is a natural starting point because the products are so personal. So you want that type of personal advisor, if you will, as a consumer on your side. You almost crave for that. But it's also going to expand into other verticals. And I think, this is also why if we think about kind of the advance of AI and all the kind of recent applications of AI, I mean, one of the things that's been quite widespread is these kind of personal agents, these personal shopping agents. You just tell it what you want to buy, and it scours the web for all different alternatives and so forth. But I think one of the reasons those are becoming so popular and so powerful is because consumers don't actually feel like they're getting more from their retailers and brands than just the purchase, right? If you feel
Mhm.
like the only thing you're getting is the product, you're not getting advice, you're not getting help, nobody's helping you buy, you're just getting the end result. Well, you might as well relegate that to an AI agent because an AI agent can do the transaction for you and, can do the research for you and find the right alternative for the best price. And I think that's kind of a symptom of how consumers today feel about kind of brands and retailers, and that needs to change. And I think that's that's what we are doing in the beauty space. But I think that change is going to be more profound and extend way beyond what we're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I will be absolutely honest. I do not visit beauty stores that often, but I remember when I was a little kid and sometimes was going to this kind of stores with my mom. It was obvious that it was rather the whole experience for her than just pick up groceries and run away. No, it was something what she wanted to go through fully, to try on different products, to talk to the consultant, and as the world is moving more and more to the digital space, that's obvious what kind of gap Reviv is feeling, because there is an ability to simulate this kind of experience, but online. And yeah, especially considering that so I have heard Sam Altman saying one interesting thing when he was asked which startups do you think are gonna succeed and which aren't. And Sam responded that some startups in AI space are built with the premise that the models are gonna just stay as smart as they are now, and some are rather looking forward and understand that models are getting only more and more intelligent. And I think Reviv is the second case, because as because you are able to take advantage of every new iteration where the model, let's say O4 mini high, has been introduced, and now the text feature of your agent is higher quality, because it is able to get better recommendations to your users, and particularly the customers of the beauty retail stores which you serve. All right, and again, as I now mentioned the certain features, the next questions is today Reviv offers AI skin diagnostics, augmented reality try-ons, and even AI advisors for makeup and hair. So how has the company's product evolved from when you first launched to now, and what are some, let's say, the signature services which you provide to brands and retailers?
Yeah, so I think, and I think this is, by the way, a hallmark of if you're building a company, like, one of the things people often miss when they look at some large company, a company that's scaled really nicely, like whether it's a growth company these days or whether it's a more mature company, they often forget where it started from. And as any successful company, we also started from a very narrow niche. We had a background in retail, not with brands, but with retail. So with retailers, and we started very simply from skincare, a personalized customer experience for skincare that was meant for multi-brand retailers. And we did that for the first couple years. We didn't touch brands, we didn't touch makeup, hair care, hair color, all these other verticals. We did that in a very, very focused way, because the other advice, and I can't remember if it was Steve Blank or somebody who says, like, nail your niche and then scale it, right? And I think we also started very, very narrow. We were targeting a very specific consumer problem, very targeted problem that we knew how to solve for a very you know targeted group of customers, and that was the beauty retailers. Um, and that was an initial starting point. And to be honest, I think you evolve together with the customers and the feedback that you get from those customers. I think one of the other things is that the the companies who end up winning, the technology companies who end up winning, they are less and less, the larger they get, the less and less they are about the technology as such, and the more and more they are about deeply understanding the customer and what does the customer care about. And I think one of the inflection points for us to go say, okay, we have to expand and we want to expand beyond kind of skincare was really we had some conversations with some large beauty retail executives and they were kind of saying a couple of things. First of all, they were saying, well, eventually, we want a whole platform that can just help us across all these skin health, beauty, and wellness adjacent verticals. So that was one thing that was happening. This is pre-COVID, by the way. So that was one thing that was happening where they said, okay, we don't want somebody for skincare, another one for makeup, a third one for hair care. We want a platform that can basically do everything because these are the verticals that we care about. So that's on the one side. And then on the other side, alongside with COVID, there was a shift that happened in kind of the consumer perception, right? It used to be, particularly in our business, that kind of beauty equaled makeup and skincare was just something else, and all the rest were nowhere to be
Mhm.
found. And as a result of COVID, and everything, kind of people went through in that age, um, you know, the notion of kind of health, wellness, and well-being as it relates to beauty and makeup and skincare, those started merging in the mind of the consumer, right? And I think that was another inflection point for us to say, like, hold on, like in the mind of the consumer, like skincare, makeup, hair care, wellness, well-being, they're all kind of part of this like broader concept of wellness, if you will. And and that was another inflection point where he said, okay, like if we really want to change the way that consumers interact with brand and really build out the vision that we have for this sort of helping consumers buy rather than kind of selling to the consumer. We need to do that across all these different sort of beauty adjacent verticals, if you will. And of course, along the way, you've had expansions in terms of geographies. You've got had expansions of the team. For a very long time, we were a team of 10 or 12 people. This is kind of pre-COVID, and I think we're not quite at 100, but we're I think we're 70-ish right now in terms of headcount. So we've grown quite nicely. But yeah, those are kind of some of the, I should say, inflection points where we kind of realized that okay, we have to evolve as a company as opposed to just keep doing what we've been doing so far.
Got it, got it. So by on you began in the narrow niche by solving specific issue, and then you, especially during COVID, you realize that consumers rather perceive skincare, hair care, and even health as sort of part of one whole concept, and that's the premise of which you planned and executed the development and growth of Reviv.
Yeah,
I guess
definitely.
that's. Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the other key things, to that is, and this is particularly true for us as well, but I think any successful company, like if you look at how you expand and how you kind of build out your business, you know, you shouldn't expand just because you can, right? Like just because you can. Like there's a lot of verticals that we could technically expand to. There's a lot of things we could do. In fact, we see a lot of our competitors just doing things and pushing out new products to new verticals just because they have the technical ability to do so, right? Now, we would have the technical ability to do a lot of things we're not doing today, but I think what's key for us is whenever we really look at a particular vertical, look at a particular opportunity for expansion, one of the things we look at is there a unique way in which we can help solve a real, critical, tangible business problem for the brand or retailer, and therefore also for the consumer, and that's the reason why we do it, right? We don't do it just because we have a technical ability to do certain things,
Mhm.
like because I think otherwise you end up with a kind of a fish soup of things, none of which are really kind of interrelated, and it becomes kind of technology for the sake of technology, right? And and I think I'm always of the opinion that you know technology as such doesn't in itself, it doesn't really solve anybody's business problem. It's not a magic bullet. Like you have to leverage and harness the technology for a very particular kind of use case, a very specific use case um, that goes really deep. And you really have to understand the underlying business problems that you're trying to solve, and then it can become really powerful, right? And by the way, you see this with AI. Like you see this with AI, right? So you think about the kind of the original large language models. I mean, or whether you look at ChatGPT, whether you look at Grok, whether you look at Gemini, whatever you look at, right? These kind of sort of sort of original sort of large language models, they're really good at general stuff, like really good at like generally finding out information about general stuff. But the more deep you go into a particular subject or attempt to go deep into a particular subject, the less good they are. And then there's other really specialized alternatives, which are then really understand a particular very narrowly defined use case and can really solve for that really, really well. And maybe some of those are built, on top of the combination of those language models. But the point being is that, that's what we try to do as well. Like whenever we do something new, we don't do it. And there's some of our customers have asked us to do certain things for a very, very long
Hmm.
time because they know we have the technical ability to do that, and we just said no. I mean, we could do it, but it's not our business just yet because we're just not there. We don't understand the problems deep enough. We don't kind of understand the value on a deep enough level, that it makes sense for us to go into that because it's just because it's technically possible, doesn't mean you should do it.
Okay. And what would you say is the ability to actually uncover those problems businesses have, which then can be solved with those technical abilities and tools available?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, everything starts with having conversations with your customers and really trying to understand, not just what they're saying, but why are they saying certain things, right? So you have to, the better you are, I mean, at really kind of uncovering, some of the kind of fundamentals, some of the kind of painful truth, and the closer you get to kind of the underlying problems and uncovering, you know, why certain things are more important than others. And I think it's also that part is also really critical because when you're thinking about kind of what to build and what is the right product to build, what is the right solution to build, um, the reality is that every company has 1,000 things that they could do better. Like even internally at Review, if we have 1,000 things that we could do better, I don't think we're going to get to more than a maximum of five of those any given year. So, if you think you've
Excuse
uncovered
me,
something
excuse
that's,
me.
yeah,
I'm sorry for interruption. You meant 1,000 things. Do you rather mean the quality of services you provide or the internal processes?
like internal problems, like there's a thousand things you could fix about your business. So if you think about any company, like if you're selling to B2B, right, you're selling to another company, all of those prospects that you have, there's probably 1,000 things they could do better. Like they could solve 1,000 issues, but the reality is like 990 of those issues are not important enough to actually solve, right? They are
Mhm.
problems, but they're not important enough to solve because you can only really get to the top. And I think actually Steve Jobs did this thing when he was back running Apple. He put a bunch of the Apple executives into one room, offsite, and I think he had them rank 10 of the things that those executives thought, the top 10 things that those executives thought that Apple should do. And they put them on the board, and he erased the bottom seven, and he said, the top three is what we are going to do. Because he understood that you can only solve a certain limited amount of problems at a certain time. And I think that's where it's important when you are thinking about what is the right product to build, what is the right solution for your target audience. You really have to be able to have deep conversations so that you really understand what matters to them why it matters and what's the impact if this thing isn't solved. Like, if they don't solve for this particular problem, what is the impact on their business? Like, what's going to break? What are they going to lose? What are they not going to gain? And that's how you kind of, based on those, I would say, kind of very honest and deep conversations, you start forming an opinion on, which direction should you expand to? Because it's not always, you start out with a hypothesis and it's not always clear. So sometimes it turns out to be, something else. And we've made mistakes. Like we've made mistakes. I'll give a very candid example. You know, we have an approach of a platform, a full-on platform that has a lot of advantages as opposed to if someone just gives you, let's say, a virtual try-on for makeup. There's a lot of companies that can give you a virtual try-on for makeup, that's technically really good. Um, but you know, when you combine it with the value that we give on our platform, there's some real differentiations and real business problems that we can solve with because we have this platform approach that you can't solve just by having the ability to put lipstick on, lips. Um, and I was wrong. Like I thought that it was enough that we have the differentiation of our platform and that the actual virtual try on is quote unquote good enough, good enough. I thought, okay, like that's just a feature. It is just a component. But what I underestimated, this is, 3, 4 years ago, I underestimated that yes, the platform is powerful and the platform provides a lot of value that otherwise the brands and retailers would not be getting from anybody else. But they will not compromise on the quality of the virtual try on in exchange for the platform. So both have to be true at the same time, which was, I was wrong in my hypothesis. So again, for a couple of years there, I was saying, okay, it's enough that our virtual try-on is good enough. It doesn't have to be world class. Well, I was wrong. Today it is world class. It's probably one of the best virtual try-ons out there. But that's an example where we had not initially gone deep enough to really understand the trade-off that we were making. Like this is what we're really good at. We can be over here on this other thing. When we did go deep enough, we understood actually no, we have to be really good on both of these things. So that's just a tangible example in my own experience. So yeah.
Well, I guess it was rather just the matter of time and experience and awareness to find out experience to be able to solve the problems and improve upon the existing tech stack and the acumen of what are the business problems to solve and awareness to know what exactly to change in your company and in the structure of the service in order to make it more appealing to your partners and eventually time to make it all real. and
Yeah, definitely.
and with all this exciting circumstance which is favoring review AI, so the increasing usage of internet by people all over the world in all areas of life, particularly in shopping and purchasing beauty products, AI models getting smarter and being able to better recognize the images and videos. So what is the plan for Reef AI to enhance its service, or what overall, what is your plan for the next 6 months, maybe a year, where you wanna be comparing
Yeah,
to
I
now?
think. Yeah, so I think. Well, there's obviously a couple things. I think one of the things that we will not change is our kind of commitment and focus to using AI as a technology to solve real tangible business problems for our customers. Okay, so that's not going to go away. Like that's where we've always been, that is where we are, and that's why companies come to us. It's not a flashy gimmick. We're actually leveraging AI to solve real challenges that they have as businesses. So that's not going to go anywhere. But what I think, is very much possible is if we think about the advancements of technology and AI in particular in this modern age and how quickly that technology is advancing, it kind of brings way to kind of new modalities, right? So if we think about an AI powered experience as we think about it today, and as our customers are using it today, there's a high level of, I would say, uh, it's almost like a descriptive type experience. It's a very controlled. It's very kind of a narrative, right, that is very controlled inside of that experience that then the consumer goes through.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is that AI gives an ability to do is really like have a more, I would say, fluid interaction, enable a more authentic seeming or authentic feeling kind of interaction between the brand and the consumer. Because ultimately, what we enable the brands and retailers to provide the consumers with a personal experience across any channel where they serve their consumers, just like that beauty advisor in the store or your hairdresser gives you a personal experience. And if you think about kind of replicating that across digital channels, being able to have a natural dialogue where the consumer doesn't feel like it's prescriptive, but it's really a naturally flowing dialogue that can go into multiple different directions. Um, I think that's going to be more and more possible, right? Now, of course, you can't let, AIs go crazy. You still have to allow the brands to kind of insert their own philosophy and their way of thinking, their way of talking to the customers, their brand philosophy, if you will, into the conversation. But I think that's going to be more powerful. I also think the other thing that's going to be more powerful is as a byproduct of leveraging these AI solutions, or the consumers going through these AI solutions, whether it's on a website, it's on a mobile app, in store, wherever it may be, there's a lot of data, a lot of insights about really personal insights that the brand is able to learn about the consumer, about their concerns, about their goals, about what's going on with their skin, about their needs, desires, hopes, dreams, whatever it is. And I think what AI is going to unlock is the ability to leverage that much more intimately. Because in the end of the day, like I said, consumers don't want to feel that they are being sold to, but they do need help by. And if they feel like you as a brand are genuinely on their side, you're genuinely trying to help them buy, they're going to buy, right? They're certainly going to buy. So I think those are some of the advancements that we will obviously, be working on, but also that we'll see more generally, because I think it's it's really kind of, I would say that it will allow the consumer to kind of be in more control, right, of what they want to do, not what the brand wants them to, but what they want to do. And the brand, who's historically been in control, will become more of a facilitator of an experience for the consumer, as opposed to kind of the one in the driver's seat, right? So if I take a car analogy, right, so far the retailers and brands have been in the driver's seat, and the consumers have been the passengers, right? And I think what we are going to be working on, what I think is going to happen in the market in general, is that the advancement of AI and the kind of accelerated improvement of AI is going to allow the consumer to be in the driver's seat, and the brands can be kind of the co-pilot, helping the consumer navigate the different kind of roads and the right direction. So I think that's where we are kind of headed, and that's kind of the future that we're also building for at Revive.
All right, and I I have heard that you mentioned that main focus is to make the customer to be in the driver's seat rather than brand, and make the experience more authentic to the consumer. Is it correct overall, if I understand correctly?
Yeah, I mean, overall, if you summarize it, yes, yes, most certainly. I mean, the brands and retailers, of course, continue to be our customers. That is who we sell to. But in terms of what the experience feels like for the consumer, like that's going to matter more, and that's where the consumer is going to be in the driver's seat. Like, what does the consumer want to consume? What is the experience the consumer wants, rather than this is the experience the brand is kind of giving, right? And there's a difference there. So yeah.
Mhm. And do you think of modifying? So I guess the catalog must be still provided by the brand because obviously they supply the goods. However, I guess I just assume that the places where the experience can be made more authentic is rather the way person decides to interact with the brand. So perhaps they can opt for voice they want to hear when the voice agent is talking to them, or perhaps they can choose the kind of style they want text based agent to interact with them like. Is it something what you have thought of, or
Yeah,
is
I
it?
mean, look, I think in general, like multiple modalities, right? Whether you get into the nuances of, what the voice is and whether it's male or female voice, what kind of accent and so forth, like, that's one thing. But I think in general, like more modalities in terms of more choice for the consumer in terms of, how do they want to experience the brand? Where do they want it? Do they want an experience on top of their social media? Do they want an experience on the D2C website? Do they want to experience the brand through their retail site? Do they want an experience through an app? Do they want an experience through voice, like, text? These are different modalities that I think are going to be way more powerful. And I think kind of make a lot more sense. I mean, if you think about voice as a modality of, how do brands interact with consumers? We did a voice kind of agent, AI agent for skincare voice demo. This was for NRF, the National Retail Federation, big show in New York in 2017. Right, so that's a long time ago, right? And we had Alexa, we had Amazon's Alexa, we had Alexa there, and Alexa was it was a voice agent inside of Alexa helping consumers find the skincare products, and it was pretty nice. It was pretty interesting. It was pretty innovative at the time, but it wasn't really commercially kind of it wasn't enterprise grade, if you will. Like it wasn't
Mhm.
something that you could scale and you could just put into any home or any kind of voice channel, or it wasn't really. It was more of a demo. So I think and this is kind of the problem of a lot of these channels for consumers, is that they've been kind of gimmicky, they've been kind of nice, but they haven't been kind of mainstream, right? So I think what AI now has allowed is for things like voice, for example, to become a real legitimate channel through which brands provide an experience and retailers provide an experience to their consumers. Um, Ultimately, how big it becomes is about the consumer, um, but you know, it will allow for these types of shifts to happen, right? And I think, yeah. Then there's all the little nuances and tweaks of kind of what is the voice? What is the voice actually? Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it whatever? Sort of, um, you know, whatever accent and so forth. But I would say in general, kind of the availability of different modalities is going to get a lot more extensive.
Sample.
Right.
Just I'm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I mean, what I think AI will allow is, there's obviously nuances to things like which tone of voice, is it a male or a female voice, and what is the accent and so forth. But I think in general, there is this. multiplication of modalities, right? So the way brands serve their consumers and way retailers serve their consumers, they can do it using voice, using text, using social media channels. And I think AI will allow kind of the multiplication of those channels and those modalities, right? So there's more options for consumers to be served, by the brands and retailers. And, one of the things we did, this is way back in the day, if you think about voice specifically, is for I think NRF, the National Retail Federation, big show in New York. This was probably 2017. We actually had an AI agent for skincare demo on voice on Alexa. So we had Amazon's Alexa, there was a voice agent that was guiding people to the right skincare products and so forth. Now back then, again, this is 2017, this is 8 years ago. It was really just a demo. Like there was no way you could turn that into a real scalable solution that a brand could deploy and that wouldn't go crazy if somebody asked them things in the wrong way. So it was very specific, that you had to ask very specific things in a
Yeah.
specific way and it would work. But I think AI is going to allow that type of an interaction and that type of modality to be possible between the brand and the consumer, where again the consumer doesn't get frustrated because the thing just works. It doesn't matter what you ask, it just works, right? It's not like Siri used to be, where you ask Siri something and it doesn't know anything. um, so that's where I think AI is going to be really profound. Now, how big do some of these channels sort of become? I don't actually know. It depends on, nobody knows. It depends on what the consumer adoption and consumer appetite is for kind of certain things. But I do think the opportunity is there, which again wasn't the case maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And you have mentioned quite many features which can be modified to personalize and make the experience of the customer more authentic. So you mentioned that there are different platforms where the person can experience the brand, either it is app or website or social media, and also voices which are now a bit more advanced than Amazon Alexa in 2017. So out of all these different modalities and features, which one you think is the most critical to improve upon to, I would say, increase this invisible metric of authenticity when presenting the solution to the
Yeah,
customers?
I always tend to think that you know, if you think about kind of the different modalities, different channels that you use to serve your consumers, particularly being in our space, I think you know there's both kind of new modalities which are not being used widespread right now, which, for example, voice is one of those. Um, there's a bunch of like in home hardware, for example, which people have smart mirrors and those types of things in our space in the bathroom that can be used to have an interaction between the brand and the consumer. Like there's quite a few that were rolled out in a CES in Las Vegas in January, for example. But I always tend to think that actually the most powerful are the ones that consumers are using in their regular life. So I think there's a lot of potential still left with what is the mobile experience, for example? Like what is the experience that you as a brand are delivering through the mobile device? Because everybody's got a mobile, right? So what is the experience you're delivering through the mobile, whether it's through the screen or whether it's through voice on mobile, like whichever kind of modality it has both. Um, that's where I think there's a lot of kind of room for improvement still, right? And that's a device that consumers already have, right? It's a device everybody's got in their pockets. So in that sense, it also doesn't require the consumer to do very much differently. So there's a lot of potential still there. Um, and I would have to say that's probably that is probably going to be really really powerful, with the help of AI. um I also think that, I would say that there's a lot of potential also for AI outside of the digital world, but in the physical world, right? So if you think about kind of, if you still think about kind of the way commerce and the way shopping happens, and again, speaking specifically about retail and particularly kind of beauty retail, e-commerce obviously shot up as a result of COVID. Like people were going online, they couldn't go in the stores. But we've seen this kind of resurgence almost where consumers are actually preferring to go into stores in certain scenarios. And I think there's a lot of potential for the application of AI technology within physical spaces. So helping to make the experience in the physical space better through AI, right? And I think there's a lot of potential there. Um, and that's still where a lot of the consumer activity happens, right? So I still think that a lot of the kind of visits to stores are quite, mm, I mean, analog in a way, like very very kind of old school, almost very sort of
Yeah,
traditional. So that's where I think AI can unlock a bunch of value, right? Because, again, it should know, your preferences, your concerns, all the things that you want to accomplish with the consumer. And I think there's a lot of potential to help there. So that's maybe the two most immediately relevant areas that I would mention. But then there's kind of these really interesting kind of more long-term bets, like is AI going to finally make voice commerce a real thing? Is it going to introduce some other modalities, particularly in combination with kind of virtual reality and all these other technologies, are we going to have a much sleeker, much nicer alternative to Google Glasses, for example, like something that people actually want to wear? Is
yeah.
that gonna, be something that's gonna be, you know, usable from a commerce perspective? But those are more longer term things. Like those aren't. I mean, and by longer term, I mean this. Long term. Let's redefine long term. Long term isn't decades. Like long term means years. But because some of these kind of opportunities that I look at, kind of AI in the physical world or improvements into the mobile experience, those could be tomorrow. Like those are already possible today, right? Those should happen like not in the next 5 years, but right now. Like that's already possible. But so that's how I kind of think about it. So what's the immediate impact and what's the kind of long term potential? So yeah.
Okay, so you think that integrating AI into the physical stores would be really helpful in terms of increasing the quality and, I'd say, in some way, authenticity of of customers' experience. Yeah, and and you mentioned that those two are the most important. Perhaps I missed something, but what is the second one? So AI in the physical
So
stores and
AI in the physical store, and then AI influencing the mobile experience, right? So
Mhm.
so mobile experience, the physical world. Those, in my opinion, are the two that are the most immediately relevant, right? So if I was a brand, if I was a retailer today, and I was looking at whether I'm in beauty or whether I'm outside of beauty, but if I'm a brand or a retailer and I'm providing an experience to my customers, right? And I say, okay, where do we have the greatest leverage to apply AI powered technologies to really elevate the customer experience? I would say, okay, let's focus on the mobile and let's focus on in store. Like those are things that you can do today. Like those are like things for today, right? All the other stuff is probably a bit more kind of further out in terms of kind of
Mhm.
commercial application, but that's where my focus would be.
Got it, got it. And particularly within physical stores and mobile, would you focus on the voice modality? So I mean, I don't even imagine people texting in the physical store. So I guess,
Yeah, I mean, in physical stores, again, I mean, you could introduce voice into the physical stores as well. I mean, I guess the main thing is that, you can also include like AI powered services like that are accessible through the mobile, for example, QR code activated kind of AI services within the store. You can do a lot of things kind of within the store to kind of introduce AI. Voice, I would say, is part of it. I would say that, that voice doesn't necessarily require the physical store though, right? Like you can use voice on the mobile phone as well, right? Sort of standalone. Um, um, but again, I'm not sure if voice as a modality is something that is kind of immediate as an opportunity for AI. I think it's interesting, right? I think it's very interesting, and I think it is, it's something that, you can, I mean, there's a lot of power already with voice, voice in terms of AI. Like you can create whole podcasts that are just AI podcasts. They seem like real humans that are talking. I mean, you and I are real, at least so far. But I think, you can already do that. But I think in terms of shopping, right, and the customer experience and how you deliver that customer experience, I do think voice still for the majority of consumers. Again, we talk about like global consumers here, the majority of consumers, the 8 billion people on this planet, for the vast majority of them, right, speaking or voice is still today a modality that they want to use towards another human being, right? They don't want to,
Hmm.
talk to an AI, but they can interact with an AI in other means, right? But I think, yeah, so that's why I think, voice is maybe less certain. As a modality, but it's certainly interesting and really, really powerful. And I've done some experiments myself in that space too.
Okay, and have you noticed, do your competitors implement voice in their solutions, or is it still not
No, I haven't
uncovered?
seen that. No, I haven't really seen any of our kind of competitors move into that direction. And to be candid, it's something that we're kind of looking at from a distance. But like I said, for us, our development and our roadmap is always a combination of what our customers, the brands and retailers, what is important to them in terms of the business problems that we can solve, and then also what about the beauty consumer? Like, what is important for the beauty consumer? What are they looking to solve for? And it's the intersection of those two
Uh-huh.
things that defines our roadmap. So I don't think voice yet today. I don't think there's a big enough problem to solve with voice
Hmm.
that can't be solved. Where voice is uniquely capable of solving, right? It's innovative, it's nice, it's great, it feels like wow. But is there a real tangible, like long-term problem where it's not just innovation, right? I mean, some of our customers are experimenting with voice as a modality. I know that, but yeah, yeah, we're also looking at it as a potential future avenue, but we're not quite there yet.
All right, so I guess you'd say that voice is rather in bottom seven of the issues, not in
Yeah,
the top
definitely,
three.
definitely. Yeah, it's definitely there. It's like I said, it's interesting, it's innovative, it's a conversation, but I don't I cannot think of a problem where right now it's uniquely positioned to solve that you couldn't, you know, do it another way.
Got it. Got it. Thank you very much, Sample. We could be talking for ages, I think, but you're definitely a busy person, so you have other things to do, and also sort of overall time frame is of our podcast is almost done. Therefore, I just wanted to ask one final question, and after achieving all this success and having decades of experience in the industry as a founder, CEO, entrepreneur, what lights you up every day? What keeps you motivated?
Well, I think, the reality is there's a obviously I get excited about technology, right? I get excited about the potential of technology to solve real sort of human problems and business issues. And I think that is fundamentally kind of what gets me up in the morning, right? Because I think
Mhm.
it is I, I think technology, particularly in the age of AI, is kind of uniquely positioned. And I think many people get this wrong because they talk about the technology and the technology and the technology, but I think it's uniquely positioned to solve kind of critical issues and critical business challenges for customers. And I think that is a really exciting kind of intersection to be at, and really trying to understand, on one hand, the crazy fast pace of technological development, and on the other hand, you have this set of business problems and issues that your customers or prospective customers may have had or may have, and maybe they've been struggling for those for years, and kind of being able to kind of see the fact that, hey, you're actually able to take this piece of technology, build something from it, and solve a real problem that has a real impact, right? And then you see that impact like on their business, and that's like, well, that's why you kind of get up in the morning, because so that you get to see that. And I
Yeah.
think that's really powerful, right? So that more than anything else, I would say lights a fire under me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's. I think in our very biology, it's somehow rooted to be inspired by the ability to help others because it somehow, I guess, increases our position according to others. But in the mm, what would be the right word? In the kind way, in the appropriate way. So
Mm.
you both bring value and you also increase your reputation, which is a great thing. Why wouldn't you do that? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
definitely, definitely.
thank you very much for this wonderful podcast. For viewers of this video, I just wanted to mention that all relevant links to Sampo's social media, to the links of Revive AI, everything is on top of the description, which is right below this video. Press the like button, subscribe to see first this kind of interesting discussions, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.
Bye bye.